So when I got involved in dogs in the first place, I always had a dog growing up. The first memory of a dog I have is being 3 years old, and there was a Rottweiler. And then I don't remember much about that Rottweiler. I don't remember it being an adult. I remember being a pup. So I imagine my parents gave it to the neighbors is I think what happened. But more in with the dogs is my family had a small piece of property. It was maybe 5, 6 acres out of town. We had some animals on there, and we had some dogs. I had German Shepherd crosses, and then some pit bulls, and some fox terriers. Those fox terriers. Those fox terriers were good dogs. Some people around the area had chickens, and the fox terriers would guard the chickens and fight off raccoons and possums and foxes and other predators like that. If you Google like a fox terrier, you see one type of fox terrier, but you Google the working fox terrier and they look a little different. And we had the working ones. And in this area, I don't think there's any more left. They're getting kind of hard to find.
And you're in Oregon, right?
I'm in Oregon. Yeah, I'm on the Oregon coast in southern Oregon. It's rural out here.
Oregon.
We call it Oregon.
Oregon. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like Oregon.
A lot of people say it like that. Even on TV sometime. Like I remember in Sons of Anarchy, they would talk about they were being in California and they would pronounce it like that too.
Right. The Oregon Trail.
Yeah. So I after we didn't have the piece of property.
Not to cut you off, but when you mentioned your shepherd crosses, do you have any idea how they were crossed or?
Yeah, there was one that was German Shepherd and Australian Shepherd, and that one was a really good dog. I was young; I was maybe 12 or 13. And I remember that one being a really good dog. Like it was just a good dog. It did everything. We didn't give it formal training, but it was an easy dog to live with. And we had chickens and turkeys on the property, and everything was good. Our shepherd chow cross, that one would leave the property often, and we had an accident and did have a litter that way when it ran off, and we had a litter. I never knew what got a hold of her, what type of pups those were. I remember I found homes for all of them, and after my family sold the property, we lived in town, and then I had pit bull terriers in town. And that's when I really fell in love with the bully breed. They were awesome towards people, but I really had to watch them around other small animals. It didn't work out. I had some, and I think I had a total of 3 of those, and they weren't registered or anything. I bought them out of the paper for like $50 to $100 each time. One was a little skittish, and I ended up finding homes for those dogs. But before I still had the pit bulls. I had a litter with 2 of my dogs. I was probably about 18, backyard litter. I did find good homes for all of them. There's still some of them around. I'm about 12 years old now. But I had mentioned to someone in the weight room in the gym that, hey, I had puppies, I had 15 pit bull terrier puppies. And someone comes out and is like, hey, you had puppies? He's like, hey, I have these dogs. Pulls out his phone and shows me some bully type American bulldogs. And I was impressed. They looked big. In the pictures, I could tell that they were like a full-on bulldog, but like the size of a Rottweiler is like the first way I ever described them to someone. Mm-hmm. And I told them, yeah, I'm interested. I wasn't totally a fan of the short muzzle, but they were still impressive. So I told them I'd go look at them. And a few weeks later, I eventually did. And I was convinced when I saw them. They were powerful, impressive looking dogs. They were big. They didn't look like they could run very far, but that's just what they were. And at the time, I didn't have the farm anymore. We were living in town, like 2 blocks from downtown in a small little town. So I, the puppies at the time, they were like $1,200 or $1,500 is what he was asking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up working out a deal with him where he had a newer Jeep that had some body and paint damage. And I was doing my little side hustle was auto body and paint. And I made his Jeep look as good as new before he sold it, and a little bit of cash, and I ended up getting a female pup. She was born with a corkscrew tail, so she didn't have a tail when I got her. But I think that's when I really got hooked on the American Bulldog, because she turned out to be a really good dog. Everywhere I went, like, I got a lot of attention, a lot of compliments, and she had a wide shoulder set, so she looked like she had a really nice big chest,
Mm-hmm.
wide ribs, nice square head with a bully face. And I always kept her in shape, not because I knew a lot about nutrition. I think I just fed her good kibble, and she was active in her genetics. It just made her look shredded. You know, she was a little bit more in shape than some of the dogs I got from the breeder, and that was JC Picking from DDP American Bulldog. And he saw her the first time and said, "Hey, yeah, she looks good. Looks like you're keeping her in shape." That was when he picked up his Jeep after I painted it. She was maybe like 10 months old at the time. So I bred her. I didn't have the best of luck breeding her. Pup got stuck, and I'm thinking my environment wasn't quite right. I was very green. I was like 19 years old when I did that first breeding.
Right. We've all been there.
And yeah, and I had one pup. I had one pup survive, and he was a very impressive looking dog. He was big head, wide chest, you know, everything that, you know, people say, "Oh, that's a monster dog," kind of like that.
Right.
His pasterns weren't as great. They were a little bit weaker. His paws were kind of big, splayed. They weren't really too bad east-west or anything. He had a good top line, but he wasn't a super active, athletic dog. But he was really impressive. You know, put him in the back of a pickup truck, and people would thumbs up and say "awesome dog" type of thing. You know.
Right.
And I kept breeding off of that line, and it was inbreeding, outcross line breeding, and I went too far. I had to end the line about the 4th generation. It wasn't in the right direction of what I wanted. At the very end, when I decided to end the line, I ended it because of the variation I got, even though it was tightly bred. I got too much variation. A couple of them had health problems. It wasn't structural. It wasn't like bone or hip or anything like that. But it just wasn't what I wanted. And super long legs, you know, maybe a throwback to like the Johnson stuff. You look some of the Johnson dogs, some of them are really impressive, but you could tell some of them had longer legs than what you see today.
Right.
Even though they were big, you know, like a 28-inch, 27-inch dog. And it wasn't quite proportionate. So I ended that line. But I did have other stuff related to that turned out to be good. So the very first American Bulldog I got with without the tail, her name was Nola, but a sister to that turned out to be a really good producer. And I have some stuff off of that that's line bred, but not tightly bred, like a cousin to cousin breeding.
Mm-hmm.
And then outcross, and I haven't gone back. I have a couple generations off of that, and I'm doing really well with that stuff. It's what I want. So right now, what I'm kind of after in the American Bulldog, I'm definitely after the bully side of things. Breathing is like absolute importance to me. I live over here on the Oregon coast.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get very hot. You know, it gets probably in the summer, it'll get to 90, maybe 14 days out of the entire summer.
Right.
It's usually 79 or 80 in the summer because I'm just miles from the ocean. I can see the water from the hill on my house.
Right.
And also it doesn't get super cold. It'll freeze over. Sometimes, every other year it'll snow, and then the snow is melted by the afternoon.
Right.
So the weather is great for raising dogs, but I need them to breathe excellent for me, because if they end up going to California, Texas, or the South or somewhere hot, they need to hang. They need to be able to withstand in that hot weather. The roof of their mouths, sometimes on the dogs, they have like the elongated palates, and when the roof of their mouth is too big and they try to breathe, it literally almost sounds like their throat is closing. And it sounds horrible, and I feel sorry for the dogs. I've seen 2 dogs like that in person, and it's, some people want to breed that stuff. I think it needs to be bred very carefully, or not bred at all would be my preference. But so I'm super conscious about that. Now, I want a bully dog, but there's a fine line where I need the dog to be more athletic, to be able to run, around the yard a few times, be able to go on hikes, to act like a normal dog. Obviously, the form follows function, and it's not going to perform the same as a American Pit Bull Terrier, or run like like any other dog. So I'm kind of breeding towards that, where they're bully, but they also have the ability to perform.
Well, I did notice that on a lot of the videos you sent me, they were hitting the spring pole and everything, and tugging, and
Yeah, see, and
looked like
that's
they were having fun. So I mean, I've seen train wrecks who would never do that. Even in the American Bulldog world, I've seen it. I don't know the reason why people want them so short, so squatty, so out of shape. I mean, I understand, like, back in the day, you'd say, oh, this guy, he got this dog to make his balls look bigger, a status symbol dog. But what status do you get from an unhealthy animal? I just don't understand it personally.
I don't know. Maybe it's like that freakiness, kind of cool to look at. Like, some people look at professional bodybuilding and they think, oh, that's cool, but that's only because you're kind of, I'm going to say it, like people who think like bodybuilding, when the huge jacked up Mr. Olympia dudes, they think that's cool. You have to be really into that, because the average person who's not in that world looks at it and they think it's like, that's not what I would want to be,
Right.
But that's interesting. We'll come back to that, because you were saying, like, the videos I sent you of the dogs just running, hitting the pole, hitting the spring pole. They like to play the flirt pole. Like, that's how, it looks cool. Those videos look like they're in action. And that's what I want to maintain. But I also want to get my phenotype correct. I want the phenotype to look. I want their head to look the way I want them to look, and still be able to function. Now, it's a fine line. I know I'm going to go overboard sometimes, where a dog will be too bully, and then I'll have to walk it back. And then a dog will be really athletic, but he's not quite their phenotype. And each dog that I just mentioned will be a tool in trying to stay right in the middle of where I want them to be. Because, I mean, I've had dogs returned because they weren't athletic enough. And then I've had people not be happy because they were after a super bully dog, but I'm trying to be right in the middle of where I am, not change my mind, not go, make dogs too short and too wide. But, they have to look powerful also. They have to look like, if someone's gonna, deter someone from breaking into my car if the dog's in there. Mm-hmm. Making someone think twice before they're going to go on the property, or they pull up in my driveway and they don't want to get out of the car. Still look like, there's some dogs out there that are just, like some oldies that are super wide and short to the ground. And, in one way you can say they're impressive because that's difficult to breed. It's difficult to breed and maintain a dog like that because naturally it wants to revert back. When you breed, you'll get variation, but that's kind of what I'm after. Someone the other day asked me what kind of phenotype, what I meant by the way they look, the head and the way the ears are set and the muzzle. There was a breeder in California that went by Miriables, and he had a female dog named Cora, and then a dog he produced named TKO. I'm a fan of those dogs. I like that. That's kind of, if my dogs look like that, I'd be pretty happy. I'm not gonna, say I'm gonna copy him, but that's one of the dogs I admired.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what I'm after. When I'm raising the dogs, I have chickens, like 20 chickens in the yard, and then a few in pens in the chicken coop. And I want my dogs I train my dogs to be fine with the chickens, to ignore them, to not pay them any attention. And they have to be able to do that, have the calm demeanor around them. But they also have to hit that spring pull. They have to flirt pull. They got to play tug, like, impressively. And for me, that is like the stable temperament. So I have a 10-month-old pup like that, for example. I like his phenotype. His name is Batman. He's an all black pup.
Wow.
10 months old. He loves the flirt pole. He'll play on the spring pole. He'll walk by a chicken 3 feet away and it'll be like he didn't even see it. He knows he's not supposed to. He had not left the house since he was a pup to go to the vet is when last time he left the house, when he was a small, like 2.5-month-old puppy. Yeah, this past weekend I took him to a bully show, just a fun show, just to walk around. And I had never taken him out of the house. But my plan was to go to the show for like an hour or two tops, take my dog out in the parking lot, have him walk around, maybe stand by the door. And if I didn't like the way he behaved or it was too much work to have him around the other dogs, I would put him back in the truck, go to the show for like 30 minutes and then probably leave.
Right.
I stood by the door for like 10 minutes and he saw those other dogs and it was fine. He was curious, but he looked up to me because he didn't know what was going on. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go in. And I went into that bully show. He got a little freaked out by the double doors. He stopped and I had kind of pulled him. And then we went in and we were in that show for like 3 or 4 hours, like just walking around and it was great. There was a bunch of little kids that looked like they were like 6 years old running around together. He didn't pay him attention. Dogs would come up and sniff him. I'd just tug on his leash just a tiny little bit and he'd look up at me and we'd keep walking. So I was surprised by my own dog that time. So
that's
I'm
one
super
thing
happy
that
with
does,
that temperament.
that is one thing that does impress me about the American Bulldogs as opposed to, the pit bull terriers and whatnot, is the fact that they are able. They can turn on. And I've seen some pretty insane footage of American Bulldogs doing some damage. But
Yeah.
they have a little more self-preservation that I could see. And they know when enough is enough. And
Yeah, they have that good on and off switch. And then I also so right now I live out of town on 3 acres, and 3 or 4 years ago I lived in town in a small town, and the dogs I had, they were my house dogs, but I'd breed them.
Mm-hmm.
And those dogs, they were just in my house, in my backyard, and if they saw a cat or a chicken, I had to hold onto that leash tight because they were never raised around them or I never trained them to stop or ignore it, and I had to hold on to that leash tight. So with my daughter couldn't walk those around the neighborhood because of if it saw a cat or something, it was going to pull, it was going to go for it. And that was one of the things I went for selecting. I selected for that. Just I didn't want the dogs to go after, have extreme prey drive. But some of the dogs I do sell to families, some people tell me they do have prey drive. Like they will chase a cat. If they see a raccoon, they're going to go after it. And I ask them, and they don't have house cats. They were never exposed. And then there's another lady up in Washington State that I sold a dog to, and she had like these rescue raccoons since they were super small. And she sent me some pictures of the dog she got from me sleeping and sharing a water bowl with like three little raccoon puppies, kittens or cubs, whatever they're called. So it with these dogs, I can say if you raise them around smaller animals, they will do well with the ones I have, because I've been selecting for this because I want to have chickens too. They're good. It's like a little homestead I kind of got going on, so that's important to me too.
It's funny. That's always been one of my goals, and I think everybody should be trying to go back to basics. I mean, you mentioned that your parents, or where you grew up, was a homestead, more or less, or that, what would you say, 5-6 acres?
Yeah, it kind of was. They were busy with their work, so it didn't go as far as it could have, which is I'm busy with work too. So I could be doing more. I tried to plant corn one time and I didn't do a very good job because I was busy and stuff. So I'm spread thin, but I'm focusing on the animals I do have right now. If I have a career change or something, then I'm going more homestead, more stuff, little farm style. Because, back in the day, there was more farming. There was more small local farms. And now it's not so much. And that has translated into dogs, If there was more farms and more people, there'd be more farm dogs in the use for working dogs. I own a restaurant and I run the restaurant, and I talk to a lot of customers who have always been here, and a lot of people in their older years tell me that they grew up on a farm and they had dogs like this and they had dogs like that, and bear hunting and hunting stories and all sorts of stuff that they would share with me about how they needed their dogs and how they used them. And right now there's not as much use for it. At least where I'm at, it seems like it's not as important. And that translates into dogs. I mean, what the American Bulldog was maybe in the 1940s is completely different to what it is now. The American Bulldogs I have now are not the original type, I mean, they've been bred in a different way. And I mean, even though I have them on some rural acreage, I use them for something different for my lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So that's and there's no hogs up here. If there was hogs, then maybe I'd keep standard dogs, because that does sound like something I would want to do.
Have you ever considered using standard blood to even things out at any point?
So I kind of have before. I had my dog. She was a bully type dog. She wasn't overdone. She could run. Breathing wasn't as great as I wanted, but it was pretty good because the weather and for how I had her. And she was a pet. And there was this dog up in the Portland area. It was large. It looked bully, but it was a hybrid. Mm-hmm. And when I used that dog, it added size, and half the litter came out bully type, and the other half came out standard, more standard type. Like the whole litter was a variation. They didn't even look like litter mates, except they were all like the same color, white and brindle.
Mm-hmm.
I kept two, or no, I actually kept one, but one got returned to me at 6 months, and it was actually probably one of my most aesthetically pleasing looking dogs, because it had a bully head and it could move and had a tight waist and good hips and everything. But I tried. The female that I kept in the first place, she was larger than my dog. She was probably about 90 pounds, and the type was different. She had a longer muzzle, but you could still tell she had a slight underbite when you looked in her teeth and everything. And she was a good dog. I ended up not keeping her because I had too many dogs that were bred the same way. And but I would use them later on. There's some people crossbreed dogs, but the American Bulldogs, the standard is so wide. You have so many different types of dogs that you almost don't need a crossbreed. You could go get a standard dog to a bully dog and kind of get what you want somewhere in between. You're definitely going to have a lot of variation.
Right.
But the stock I have right now, the dogs I have are exactly what I want and need. I don't think I need to go to a standard dog right now.
Mm-hmm.
If for some reason I didn't have maybe all my males I have right now and the co-owns and stuff I have access to, and I just had my females, there'd be a bigger chance that I might need to go to a hybrid dog. I wouldn't go to a complete standard dog, maybe a hybrid,
Mm-hmm.
just because some of the work is already done if it's bred correctly.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. And one thing I've got going on right now where my program has shifted, this, having 2 litters a year and keeping 1 pup off of each litter to move forward with, it sounds like a really good idea. And it did work for me for a few years, and it works for most people. But the dynamic of people's kennels, if they're going to breed dogs, it's not a big issue for most people, because most people breed dogs for a few years and then decide it's not for them, kind of get out of it and just keep a couple dogs. Or people breed, a female 3 times and then stop breeding, keep the female as a pet. 8 years later, they'll get another dog and then do the same over again. But I'm trying to create a line of dogs, and actually, this is very important to me to breed my dogs the way I want them.
Right.
But the kind of scheme I got going on right now is I have 3 planned breedings, and I'm gonna keep 3 pups out of each litter, and make my picks out of those 3 pups at 6 months or 10 months old.
Mm-hmm.
It's too difficult for me to look at an 8-week-old pup and say, this is the one I'm keeping, and move forward that way. There's been too many times that I've sold my best dog.
Right.
And it's difficult. Like if you're very serious and, this dog is good, but that dog I sold over there is 5% better because of this and this. Well, 5% makes a big difference when you get real serious in it and you got, 12 dogs at home.
100%.
It makes a big difference. I don't have 12 dogs. The most dogs I ever had was, I think I had 11 dogs. Not counting a litter of puppies, in my puppy area.
And how many do you have now?
Right now I have four dogs that are going to be going to be my breeding dogs, with the youngest one being 4.5 months old and the oldest one being almost 2. And then I have an adult dog who's a retired dog now. She's a pet. She's about 5 years old, and she's not in kennels. She's loose on the property. She does great. chickens make noise, she investigates. A car pulls up in the driveway. She'll go up to the driver's door or the passenger's door and just stare and bark if the people try to get out. So she's a good dog. She's not being bred anymore. So I have 4 dogs and a few co-owns. I got like 3 co-owns. And what I did was I got up to 11 dogs, and I said, all right, I gotta cut down. And I've done this 3 times already, where, 11 dogs is a lot of time compared to having 5 dogs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not just the maintenance, cleaning water buckets, cleaning kennels, but it's also, you got to pay attention to your dogs. I need to spend quality time with my dogs, make sure they don't have any ticks on them, make sure if something happens, I notice it right away. If they got a cut on their foot or they're getting something wrong with their skin, a hot spot or something, you want to catch that the first sign. Yeah. And I looked at the 10 dogs I had last time. I think it was only 8 last time I cut down. I looked at him and I said, okay, this one I'm not going to breed. These 2 are brother and sister, or 2 sisters. I'm picking the best one. This one's pretty good, but I could put it in a co-own. I had an excellent male dog named Peso off of Wild Diamond and Logic breeding I did. And I think that was the one I sent you, of a male white and tan dog hitting the spring pole really good.
Okay. Yeah.
I have some offspring of them. I have half siblings off of them, and I placed them with a breeder that can do better than I can with that dog particularly. But I did keep breeding rights. I'm going to breed to him again. I'm not going to say I have breeding rights. He's not my dog anymore, but I am going to breed to him again. We kind of work something out, because he's still a good dog that I can use. I could do 1 or 2 generations down the line, and if it's not exactly what I need, I can breed back to that dog, because that dog has almost everything of what I want and need.
If there was anything you think that your dogs are lacking right now, what would it be?
So it's not that all my dogs are lacking, but something is popping up in not every other dog, but it's something I need to watch out for, and I don't know if it's genetic or environmental or just partially environmental, but I'm watching those front paws, the pasterns, the east-west. I'm making sure that stays correctly structurally and with conformation how it's supposed to be. I want those pasterns at about 20 degrees. Need them really strong. Don't want them super straight up and down. Some people talk about tight cat feet with the pasterns straight up and down. They need a little bit of cushion for when they land. So I need them at the right angle and pointing forward with a tight, healthy feet. I'll get some dogs that are like just look great, just perfect, and then a litter mate that's a little bit not exactly. I'd pick another one for breeding. So that's what I'm after. I've seen it tends to be males. Like all my females have those perfect front feet, and the males are, some are better than others. I don't know if it's because they grow too fast. I put all my food bowls and water bowls up high. So that's what I'm looking at, because there's variations. Even if you line breed, even if all your dogs look the same, there's a small variations when you breed the dogs. And, some could be worse, especially if you sell a puppy and you don't want them to have issues structurally in the front. So that's what I'm working on right now. It's one of the main focuses, making sure it stays under control and everything is right.
What do you normally feed your dogs?
So I do a kibble. I switched to Victor a little while ago. It's the teal bag. And I'm doing that not because I think it's the most absolute best way to feed your dog is that kibble. But it's a pretty solid choice I've been noticing so far. They do well, and I don't have all the time to do raw. I wish I had some more time to prep food for my dogs, and then be there and take their food bowls when they're done to make sure they don't get too dirty or stay dirty. Just wash them all. I don't have all that time. I wish I did, but I try to spend more one-on-one time with my dogs as much as I can, because I gotta keep them trained, because if I decide this dog isn't going to be bred and I want it to be with a family, I don't want it to be just a wild farm dog,
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I did raw for 2 dogs for a while, and it was like once a week I had to spend 3 hours almost just bagging everything up, putting it in the freezer. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating when I say 3 hours, but
it feels like it when you're busy, and
yeah,
I'm a busy person, but if I wanted to do raw, and I might later on, if I cut down and only have like 2 or 3 dogs or something, go in cruise mode with my breeding program for a while, because that might be something I have to do. Still have a litter a year or something, or a litter every 2 years, and still have only like 2 or 3 dogs.
well, that's I think that's the healthiest goal for any dog, man. Honestly, because I mean, realistically, we have lives, that we have jobs, we have things that we got to do. I mean, my thing is, the fewer the better. If I could have a few that are just insanely trained, and then have kennel partners that, that the guys that do want to have more, then that would be ideal. Put it on autopilot.
That's absolutely right, and that's I'll say that's a goal I'm working towards. I still got a way to go. I want to lock in. My temperaments are locked in my opinion. I want to lock in the look, lock in all the health, the conformation, everything good, where I could have 2 or 3 dogs at home, and I have placed or sold enough dogs out there where if I need to go use a different dog that's not in my yard, there's people out there, whether they're other breeders or pet owners that got a dog for me.
Right.
That you're right. That is the goal. I don't. Maybe I'm another 8 years, 10 years from doing that, but that would be the goal. Because you're right. We have lives and everything, and but eventually, because right now I don't have a lot of dogs, but the numbers on dogs will go up. I have a project over the next couple of years to keep 9 dogs, and do my selecting at maybe 10 months old. That way, when they're 10 months old, I see exactly what's in front of me. I see how they're developing. I have a good idea with temperament, good idea with type. And out of, I'll keep 3 out of a litter, and I'll pick one at about 10 months. And the other 2 that I don't keep, I'll keep up on training. They'll be good dogs where they could easily be placed with a family or with a friend, or with, in a good situation. And I'm not going to have all 9 at the same time that I'm raising. It's going to be 3, and then another 3, and then another 3. But that's one of the first steps in my program, because I don't want to sell my best dog. It's honestly what it's come down to. And it's fine, a puppy will go for X amount of dollars, and then a 6-month-old male won't. It won't bring as much money as an 8-week-old pup. In my experience, maybe other breeders do fine that way, but I don't. I don't sell my dogs for a lot of money.
Well, I think the other side of the coin is, like, I always thought another option is, instead of selecting anything at all, you just put a litter on the ground, sell them out, or find the homes that you can keep an eye on, and watch the traits develop from there. Then on the next litter, you kind of know what you're looking for, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it too. But that's kind of how I laid out my that's my little theory, my little plan. We'll see how it goes. That just don't work out, and then I won't be able to. But that's kind of what I'm shooting for, because there can be a lot of variety in dogs. They look the same, similar pedigrees, everything looks like they should match and click, and then you put the two dogs together and you watch the pups grow up, and there can be some big differences, even if they're litter mates and everything makes sense. You look at a dog and like, you know what, I wasn't expecting that. And sometimes a person will buy a dog, an American Bulldog, and they'll get excited, fall in love with the breed. 6 months later, they buy another dog and they go to have a litter and they produce pups. And, they'll say, I bought these pups because the parents looked awesome. They looked all right, not as great as the parents. And the pups they produced, is kind of, I'm not going to say a letdown, but I've been in those shoes and I've seen other people tell me that, and it takes a lot. It's like I said, when you buy a puppy at 8 weeks, don't exactly always know. I'm not going to say don't buy pups at 8 weeks, because you don't know, but it just seems like when you want something the most and it needs to come through for you, it doesn't always. Especially if you do this a lot like me, it just, if you pick a pup once and you buy it and you raise it and it turned out to be a really good dog, like, hey, you had some good luck. But if you're raising, a few pups a year, not everything's going to turn out. And that's just part of the game. And some people fail to plan for that. And I absolutely plan for that, because I need to get there. I need to get to where I'm going, closer to my goal. I'm sure that once I picture a dog right now, what I need it and want it to be. I'm sure once I get there, I'll have other things I want to improve, or things I found out or learned on my way to get that.